What's up everybody? I guess you probably got the memo by now, but there's actually 4 main varieties of ramen. Today I'm going to talk about the Tonkotsu style ramen, aka the pork bone broth based ramen. I went on a spiritual journey through Tokyo, Japan, looking for the best Tonkotsu ramen I could find. So sit back and relax because the Tonkotsu Ramen Tour is about to begin. So the first stop on this life-affirming Tonkotsu Ramen Tour is a little place called Ichiran. Now it seems like everyone and their dog who comes to Tokyo claims that this is the best ramen shop in the whole city. That's a pretty bold claim, and I had actually been to this Ichiran 1 year prior, but I was pretty disappointed. Nevertheless, this is considered to be one of the top tonkotsu joints around, so I figured I'd keep an open mind about it, a beginner's mind in fact. I mean, in this restaurant you get to choose your preference among a wide array of flavor categories. And I distinctly remember the last time I came here, I maxed out every category available. But if you emphasize every flavor in the ramen, then you're emphasizing no flavor, so I figured this time I'd take more of a middle-of-the-road approach. And I'm not trying to be racist or anything, but I made sure to get that white green onion, you know how I do. Anyway, after I chose a 1 setting on the Ichiran red sauce and a medium setting on the noodles, I gave my card to the maestro and took myself a seat. So as soon as I sat down, I figured it was a good time to get hydrated. Can ya blame me, baby? Just gotta open up that spout and oh man, look at that. That's some high-tech water action. So after I chillaxed for a while there, the maestro slammed my bowl of noodles through the window and then put a little curtain down. I was gonna say, that's service with a smile, but I couldn't actually see the maestro's face, so I'm just gonna say that's service with a bow. Now that bowl of ramen was looking pretty good, but I couldn't help but notice this eggy wig situation. Apparently I have to remove the shell myself. I might as well cook the whole fucking thing if they're gonna be like that. What are they, short on staff today? Here I am paying the big bucks and I have to spend my precious time de-shelling an egg. Anyway, eventually I got that eggy wig good to go and I gently placed it into the ramen. So what do you think, sweet cheeks? Just take a look at that bowl of ramen. It's looking kinda simple and minimalistic like. I mean, oftentimes bowls of ramen have massive chunks of meat and stacks of vegetables shooting out the bowl, but not so in this case. So first up, I guess I probably should take myself a sip of the broth. It's looking pretty rich and maybe even a tad creamy, so I glanced at that broth for a second, then I jammed it into my mouth. And I gotta say, although I thought coming back to the same ramen joint was a tad risky, as soon as I slurped down on that buck wild broth, I was feeling frisky, baby. Man oh fucking man, that broth was smooth as hell, creamy to the max, and oishii beyond belief. To me, that broth was the perfect balance of garlicky, oily, porky, salty, and creamy, and I was loving it to bits. Just kind of mixed that red sauce in there to add a little spice, and whoa, take a look at this meat. It's looking a tad sparse. What do they got me on over here? A low-protein diet or some shit? I shoved that meat shaving into my mouth, and it was tasting good. It was just a tad small, that's all I'm trying to say. Next up, it was time for the noodles, so I grabbed myself a huge-ass wad of those puppies and furiously jammed it into my throat. Now I think these are supposed to be some Hakata-style noodles, but I don't know exactly. Basically they were long, thin, straight, and medium firm, and I think they soaked up that perfect broth in an incredible way. I must say, it's all about the broth in this place. Man oh man does that hit the spot. That thick, hearty, and creamy pork bone broth is just the kind you want to defrost your dick on a cold winter's day. Next up, I moved on to the Egiwig, but I was having a difficult time picking it up, so I skewered the mofo. I'm sure the ramen Nazis are gonna be up in arms about that, but sometimes you just gotta cut through the BS in life and skewer your way to success. So I took myself a bite of that speared Egiwig, and it was tasting alright, not life-changing, but pretty good. And guess what, ramen Nazis? I went on ahead and skewered that Egiwig again. How do you like them apples, baby? Anyway, even though the Egiwig and meat in this bowl were nothing worth writing home about, overall, I gotta say this ramen was simply incredible. Those top-notch noodles and broth reinvigorated my soul in sensual ways. I guess the main point I'm trying to get across here is this bowl of ramen was making me feel off-nar to the extreme. Key takeaway, nice fucking ramen right there. So the next ramen shop stop is a little place called Ippudo in Ebisu. This place is also pretty famous for its tonkotsu style ramen, so I started checking out their signage situation. They got the basic bowl on the left, the special bowl in the middle, and the spicy bowl on the right. Well, what do you think, baby cakes? Am I special enough to deserve the special ramen? I think I am. So I ordered up that special ramen and started inspecting it, and I could see all kinds of stuff floating around here. I didn't know exactly what was going on, but I saw some kind of sauce action on the top, so I started mixing that in. I gotta get these flavors all evenly distributed over here. And after I got that settled, I figured it was high time to try out the broth. So I started trying it out, but whoa, baby, what the hell's going on? We got some steam action. How's a man supposed to film when the damn ventilation system in this place is shooting the steam right toward my head? Nevertheless, I somewhat recovered from that steam, and overall that broth was tasting pretty good. It was similar to the Ichiran broth, although I'd say it was somewhat more on the salty side. So what else we got over here? We got us a big ass chunk of meat, and I figured I should clear that meat in one bite. And as soon as that meat entered my mouth, I started furiously chewing on it like a wild man. And surprise, surprise, we got more steam over here. What the heck is going on with this place? Anyway, that meat was actually pretty good. It was juicy, soft, and succulent. And the good thing was, it was way bigger than that meat from Ichiran, that's for damn sure. So next up, I was trying to grab some noodles, but I was having a hard time. Anyway, I did manage to get a few in the general direction of my head, and whoa. They were starchy as hell, and kinda on the firm side, but I liked them. I guess the main problem I was having here was that broth was just a tad too salty for my liking. But one cool thing about this place is they had a whole lot of fixins chillaxing on the table. And even though these looked like pickled vegetables, which would probably be salty, I couldn't help but wonder what they'd taste like in my ramen. So I started shoveling some of these bad boys into my ramen to bring up the flavor quotient of this puppy. And if I put in one fixin', I might as well put them all in. After all, variety is the spice of life, sweet tits. So after that, I thoroughly mixed those fixins in there, and then I got ready to take myself a bite. I'll tell you, that bowl looks more messed up than a soup sandwich right now, but I took myself a bite and was pleasantly surprised. Those pickled fixins actually jazzed up this bowl with a little bit more spice, a little bit more sour, and a little bit more crunch. And overall, I gotta say, that was a pretty decent bowl of ramen, if not an unconventional bowl. So the last ramen shop stop on this tour is a place called Mutekiya. Now, there was a huge-ass line snaking out of this building, so I was not a happy camper, but I did wait patiently. And while I was waiting in line, one of the ramen maestros gave me an English menu, so I started scoping out that puppy. And the menu said this bowl was the most popular one, so I figured I might as well give it a go. So after standing outside twiddling my thumbs for 40 minutes, I finally got into the place and was served my ramen. And man, oh man, look at that bowl of ramen. Is that not the quintessential bowl of ramen right there? Except for that customized seaweed, of course. That's the first I've ever seen like that. Anyway, first things first, I started savagely digging into that broth, as I always do. And that broth was tasting pretty thick and pretty porky, maybe not creamy so much, but definitely well balanced. It tasted like a pretty decent broth in my book. The only thing I thought it could use was a little bit of a pepper bite to it, and luckily they did have some pepper at this place. And that selection of peppercorns included black and white, so I could see they didn't discriminate here. That's pretty fucking heartwarming. So after I got myself some highly diverse pepper on top of my ramen, I started taking myself some noodles. And as soon as I slammed those noodles down the hatch, I could tell they were much softer than the previous ones I had. They were good, but unlike those previous noodles, I don't think these were Hakata-style noodles. They just tasted more like your standard ramen noodle, if that makes any sense. Next up, I grabbed myself a half of an eggy wig and started looking at that, and it was looking pretty nice. Then I took myself a taste, but like those noodles, this eggy wig was tasting pretty bog standard. I mean, it was a good eggy wig, there just wasn't much special about it. I also bit into that seaweed, complete with a restaurant name printed on the front. And just like the noodles and the eggy wig, that just seemed like your standard seaweed. But then I moved on to the meat situation, and that's when I started feeling pleasantly surprised and, dare I say, borderline aroused. Holy mother of dogs, that meat was thick as hell and juicy to the max. It tasted like it had some mighty fine marination going down, and I was loving it, baby. And the best thing is, they have not one, not two, but 3 big-ass pieces of meat in this bowl. In other words, if you like to eat large quantities of innocent animals, you've come to the right place. So after biting my way through most of this bowl, I came to the conclusion that this was a pretty nice bowl. I mean, aside from the meat, most individual aspects of this bowl were not too incredible. But with all those ingredients put together into one cohesive whole, that was actually a pretty enjoyable bowl of ramen. So taking all of that into consideration, after having all 3 of these ramen bowls, I think I'd have to say that Ichiran was my fave. Something about that incredible broth made it not just the best tonkotsu, but also the best among all the ramens I tried on this tour. Second place among tonkotsus was that mutekiya, and the last one was the ippudo. And I must say, over the course of this Tonkotsu ramen tour, tonkotsu as a whole became my favorite type of ramen. I guess I'm a pretty broth-centric guy, and in my humble opinion, tonkotsu has the richest, creamiest, and most flavorful broth around. Oh, and by the way, if you want to see me hunt down even more types of ramen, then you best be checking out my other ramen tour videos. I've got a video on miso ramen, shoyu ramen, and shio ramen, and I got those links in the description box. And as always, thanks for watching this video. Why don't you leave a